Introduce you to the women behind Becky at Appleberry Farm, Becky Osborne and Kate Munno. When a floral designer or flower farmer joins the Slow Flower Society as a member, if I'm not already doing so, I immediately check out their social places and start following them on Instagram and Facebook. Because Kate and Becky post a daily reel on Instagram, I couldn't help but see their silly but totally on target content over the past year. It makes me laugh. When they registered to attend the Slow Flower Summit this past June, I was thrilled to know I would be meeting them in person. Becky at Appleberry Farm is based in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and is part of the Connecticut Flower Collective. I have to keep this intro short because if this show exceeds 1 hour, we can't post it to Instagram. And we went long. It was hard to turn off this interview. I promised to share a full intro and their bios when we post the podcast on Wednesday. You can check it out at slowflowerspodcast.com for episode 579. For now, I just want to jump in and introduce you to Kate and Becky, and we'll talk all about how to flower farm with your sibling. Hi, everybody. We are here in the Zoom room recording for the Slow Flowers podcast video version, and I'm so excited to introduce Becky Osborne and Kate Munno of Becky at Appleberry. And hi, ladies. Thanks so much for joining me.
Hi, Deb.
You're going to get a little stereo sound here, folks. Just by way of background, well, first of all, we're celebrating October is Membership Appreciation Month. I appreciate you two so much. And when you came to the Slow Flowers Summit this past June, I asked you if you would be willing to bring some flowers to share, and you showed up with an abundance from your Connecticut farm. So thanks for your generosity. And I'm thrilled we can do this interview.
Yay.
So if you've been asleep and you don't look on Instagram, you don't know Becky and Kate. But if you follow these two dynamic sisters on their farm, they're like constantly on posting fun videos and reels on Instagram. So I think we should just start with that. How did that happen? And like who instigates all those posts?
So yes, so it originally was Kate's idea, because last year we were selling Christmas wreaths, and the year before during COVID we sold a ton of wreaths. We couldn't keep up with it, and then last year we were kind of having a hard time selling them. And, we were like, well, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? And she kept being like, you need to post more on social. You need to get it out there. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? Sing and dance? And she was like, actually, I do. And she has at the time, her daughter was a senior in high school, and who was all over social media and was talking to us about Instagram Reels. And, so she was kind of like, so Jamie's talking about this thing called Reels. We should start doing it. It seems to be something that a lot of people are doing that helps build their business online. And so the two of us actually have a dance background. Growing up, we did dance in town for years and years. So we were like, okay, let's give it a whirl, and of course our first reel had like 20 views. It wasn't really very well received, but we built from there, and we're actually coming up on our 1-year anniversary of doing a reel every day. Wow. And our social media presence, we had, I think, 400-ish followers about a year ago, and now we're almost to 2,500.
Wow, so that's awesome.
It's still not a lot. It's still not a lot in the Instagram world, but it's a lot for us. If 2,500 people showed up today and wanted to buy flowers, that would be a lot.
Right. And in terms of being a regionally focused farm, you really need to connect with your local followers more than an international. Yeah, it's great to have an international fan base, but they're not going to buy flowers, right?
Oh yeah, no, but it is nice because sometimes I'll talk to people who will DM us, on Instagram, who are from Australia or from, other places. And we'll talk about, foam-free florals, or we'll talk about, how we do things sustainably here. And it kind of helps them to hear from somebody else who they might not be hearing this at this moment where they are, to kind of have somebody else to touch out to and talk about things. So
Wow.
Love you, and I need you, Nelly. I love you, I do need you. No matter what I do, all I think about is you. Even when I'm with my boo, oh, you know I'm crazy over you. No matter what I do, all I think about is you. Even when
Wow, you can really dance. Wow, you can really dance. He went. They said we've both been dancing all this time. What a coincidence.
Hi there. Is there a project you're working on? I know more than you. All right.
Give me a doll and fetch Mummy a knife.
A knife?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you'll find one lodged in the middle of my back.
Okay, well that's a lot.
And when you pull it out of my back,
Hey, I'm gonna take a shower.
you can plunge it into my heart.
forget your troubles, come on, get happy. You better chase all your cares away. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day. The sun is shining, come on, get happy. The Lord is waiting to take your hand. Shout hallelujah, come on, get happy. We're going to the promised land.
Hello, gorgeous.
I'm gonna take my time.
Let's back up a little bit and just introduce us to Appleberry Farm in terms of what it is now, where you're located, and your market, and what you grow.
Okay, well, Appleberry Farm is located in Sandy Hook, Connecticut. We have about 140-ish acres.
Wait,
but
140?
yes.
Wow. Okay.
But we only grow on one right now.
Yeah, we only
That's
we only
manageable.
Yeah, we only
Right.
grow in about one because it is just the two of us and a smackling of
Random high
helpers
schoolers.
when we can find them. But we and a lot of it used to be a dairy farm. So a lot of it is pasture land for cows, which can be hilly and rocky. So it's not necessarily conducive to growing, but we do have a lot of pasture that we used to have horses here too. So places that we're hoping to in the future take over into more perennials, and we're hoping to put in a lavender field and
Oh, wow.
all sorts of fun stuff that will kind of take over bits and pieces of that. But also, Newtown and Sandy Hook have become very overpopulated, and there are a lot of houses and things. So we want to keep a lot of the forest as forest. So, the animals have places to be, and, it's not constantly, trying to rehome the 200 deer that live in the woods,
Oh my goodness. But you don't want those deer on the flowers in the flower fields, but you give them another place to go.
Yes, we've been having issues with that, with deer eating roses and things. And
One deer in particular.
yes, and we know her. She comes by with her baby and she'll stand right on the edge of like the forest where our garden is, and she'll just stare at us.
She knows.
Wow.
And our dogs will
Wow.
run after her, and then she'll just stare us down. And then no matter how high we build the fence, no matter what we do, we play music, we do everything to distract her, and she is tenacious.
Wow. Well, people may be hearing a few of the dogs barking, and it seems
I'm
like
sorry.
that's the best, but that's the best defense for deer, pressure, right?
Yeah, we have normally 5 dogs on property. I have 2, Kate has 3. And they will do their best to keep the deer at bay. But as I said, sometimes they just don't care, and they're that hungry that
Yeah.
they'll just come on in.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. So you talked about your acreage. You talked about being in the Newtown Sandy Hook community, which is is that centrally located in Connecticut, or is it closer?
It's in Fairfield County. It's
Okay.
Sort of the southwest corner
southwest
of
corner.
Connecticut.
Yeah.
Oh, because that's where a lot of people live to commute into Manhattan
That is true.
traditionally, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So you've got the dense population of flower buyers there too, I guess.
Yes.
So we're a little bit northern in Fairfield County. You know, Fairfield, a lot of the people who commute into the city are a little bit down towards the coast, but we do still have a lot of people in the area who do love to buy flowers, which is nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what is your market and what are you growing? I mean, you're all field grown, right? You don't have do you have a high tunnel?
So we do. We worked with the Connecticut Greenhouse Company last year, and we put in a beautiful high tunnel, and we grew ranunculus and anemones for the first time. This year, or now during our growing season, we have lisianthus and eucalyptus and our celosias in there.
Wow.
All the things that like it hot.
Yeah.
And so right now that's what's in the tunnel, but everything else is field grown.
Okay. I know you're part of the Connecticut Cut Flower Collective.
Yeah.
That is, do you primarily grow for wholesale, or how does that, what else are you trying to kind of consider one of your major channels?
We grow mainly for us.
Oh.
If we have brides or other people that come to us and they have specific flowers that they want in arrangements or bouquets for an upcoming event, we actually specifically will plant for that event.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fun.
If somebody reaches out to us and books us ahead of time for our floral, design, we'll sit down and talk about colors and talk about their wants and needs. And then we will, grow seeds and seedlings and, and kind of weigh heavier on those colors. So we have them for them and grow things that will bloom at the time of their events.
Wow. That takes a lot of planning, but that's kind of like the custom growing. That's a service that most wedding florists are not going to be able to offer, but because you have a design component to your business, do customers realize how lucky they are? I mean, that's a luxury.
I hope they do. We're anything that we don't grow ourselves or aren't able to grow ourselves. We do source from the Connecticut Flower Collective. They have been a lifesaver for us. We just last week did a full dahlia wedding, and with 140 bud vases filled with a dahlia and some other stuff. We did full bouquets. We did pieces for the church, and our 1 acre, we used a lot of our dahlias, but we had to rely heavily on our friends at the Flower Collective to help us out and to really to boost us. But everything in everything in the events that we've done so far this summer have been sourced from Connecticut growers.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So when Kate said you mainly grow for yourselves, you mean you're basically your own customer then. You sell. Yeah.
We grow what we like to design with. And we also sort of just kind of have fun.
Yeah.
There's always a section of the garden that's sort of funky experiments. It's usually around like December where we start getting the seed catalogs and looking at things and going, oh, that would be fun to do. And then it turns into either a fantastic surprise in the spring or a complete disaster. So
you have the luxury of not minding if you take a little quarter acre to have a trial bed because you've got the space.
Exactly.
And Kate used to be a scientist in a former life, so she loves the trial and error of experimenting and figuring things out and soil pH and all that fun stuff. So,
well, let's talk. That's a perfect segue, Becky. Let's talk about your former lives. Kate, you were a scientist. Becky, I think, weren't you like a teacher?
Yes.
Okay, tell me how this all came together then.
Okay, so I was a K through 12 teacher at an all-girls private school in New York City, and a coach. And I had been living in New York for 13 years. And wow. I like to say I had a third of life crisis. Kind of was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And at the time, sadly, our grandparents who had been living on the farm had passed away. and our family needed someone who was going to live in the property for insurance reasons. They wouldn't insure us if no one was living on the property. And so I kind of very shy.
Because you were the city girl.
Yeah, I quit my job. I sold my apartment. I moved back home to Sandy Hook, Connecticut, where we grew up. And which was, if you had asked me in high school if I was ever going to do that, I probably would have laughed in your face, but here we are. And I moved to the farmhouse. Our grandparents had left a lot of stuff in the house, so we started cleaning out the property and doing all that kind of stuff. And then I started with a little tiny garden. My grandparents always had this huge vegetable garden. And I grew, tomatoes, kale, zucchini, all the things you're supposed to grow when you have a garden, because I was living on a farm, I'm going to have a garden.
Right.
And I did one row of zinnias, and they were always my grandmother's favorite. And also, a friend of mine had asked if I could grow zinnias. They were having a wedding. They were like, well, we might need a couple centerpieces. We were like, we'll totally help you out. So at the beginning of the season, I was going over to my friends' houses for dinner, and I'd bring them my kale and my bounty of things. And they'd be like, great, kale. And then towards the end of the season, I was bringing them little mason jars of zinnias, and they'd be like, oh, these are so beautiful. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, I'm growing the wrong thing.
That's so funny.
As the years progressed, I grew less and less vegetables and more different types of flowers. And, up until, the pandemic, we had one row of vegetables.
One row.
Just in case the supermarkets crashed and nobody knew what was going on.
Right.
But besides that, we have been completely flowers for a couple of years now. And
so what year was it that you moved back to the farm, Becky?
So it was 6 years ago.
The farm was called Appleberry Farm. And,
yes.
and okay. Did your grandparents, it was mainly a dairy farm right?
Our grandparents had it mostly as a gentleman's farm. Okay. My grandmother loved horses and animals in every form. Okay. And so we had, 50 head of cattle living in the fields across the street. Then we had, 75 sheep at one point. Oh my God. We had tons of donkeys. Oh my goodness. So many donkeys. And then horses and chickens and guinea hens and ducks and, the random pig and just anything.
She was like Dr. Dolittle. Anything that needed a home, she would take in and take care of. And, she really loved being surrounded by animals and had this farm where she could do it.
Yeah.
So.
And this was your childhood too. You spent time there.
Oh yeah. We lived next door. We grew up next door.
So while Becky's doing her New York stint and, living the good life in the city, like, I don't know, that girl or something. What was your science path, Kate? And had you moved away from the farm of the town you grew up in? And
so yes, so I had moved away a long time ago. I was married. I had 2 kids. I was doing the mom dream, the volunteer queen of
all things,
right? Yeah. And yeah, my background, I have a master's in hydrogeology. So, wow. Right.
My head is spinning around that too. Wow. That's impressive. Yeah.
So yeah, so I was volunteering. I was running a ton of marathons. That was sort of my thing for a while. And then the pandemic hit, everything came to a screeching halt, and we were looking for something to do with the kids because nobody could go anywhere. And the farm was a place to go. And so I started coming up here and helping Becky out with some gardening tasks and basic, just maintenance.
Well, and Becky, you needed the help probably.
Oh yeah. And especially during the pandemic when I couldn't bring anyone to help me in, it was so nice to have instant helpers,
Yeah. You created your own little pod.
Oh, we did.
How far away were you, Kate? Were you also in Connecticut or another state?
Right. So I live in Stamford. So I
Okay.
live about 45 minutes away, but I'm in the commuter section where all the people drive to New York City,
Mhm.
which it actually works beautifully for our CSA too. Because we have 2 distribution points for our CSA. You can come to the farm and pick up here, or you can come to my house and pick up.
Wow. So that's that consumer direct is your other channel besides doing mostly your weddings and then some wholesale, right?
We have a pretty robust CSA. We break it up into 3 seasons. We do spring, summer, and fall. Basically peonies, lisianthus, and dahlias. And then we also do special orders. So if you give us 48 hours notice, say you need an arrangement for a birthday or a wrap bouquet or something like that, we can do one-off things. We also have little markets at our barn that we call Blooms in the Barn. And we have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, and they come and we do, their candles and fiber goods and, all sorts of things that people will sell here. And then we sell flowers and
like a
yeah.
pop-up almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we do a couple a year, and it's, sometimes we'll work with a photographer who will come and offer, like mini sessions. So people can sign up for a half an hour of a mini session, kind of thing. So it's always a fun time. And then anything that's left over after all of these things, we sell wholesale at the collective.
Okay. So in a way, it sounds like your priority is direct sales to consumers. And through the CSA and these on-farm events and your weddings, and then the collective is a great outlet for product that hasn't been spoken for, but is super fresh and super beautiful and ready to go to the wholesale buyer, who are mainly florists, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we there was our first year growing lisianthus, so I really didn't know, what was going to happen. And I ended up with so many pink lisianthus, so many pink lisianthus,
and they're pricey little buggers. You can't toss them in the compost heap. You got to try to monetize them.
No.
Right,
And so we had every single event we had when they were gorgeous and at their prime was like, we'd love blue and lavender and white, or we just want green and white. And I was like, I have these gorgeous pink lisianthus. And so the collective got almost all of our gorgeous, or our CSAs got all of our gorgeous lisianthus. And, it was a real huge help for me. It would have been a complete lost crop,
right?
Because we just had no demand for it. And so that's where the collective is such an amazing tool for us. Anything that we have doesn't get lost. It just finds another home. So
I mean, it's kind of a verification or validation that you need to have multiple channels because it is there are variables you can't control, like customer color preference or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
Well, what's the takeaway for your lisianthus plans for 2023? I'm just curious. Are you going to?
We're diversifying our colors a little more.
Okay.
And the nice thing is that, I buy, you guys know Janet, I split plugs with Janet. And so it's been nice because her growing area is getting a little bigger. And so we can get different colors, and do more different colors with a few less, with less of us having to take that. Okay, if we're going to buy a tray of X amount of plugs, and Janet can only plant 30, then I have to plant the rest.
And you're referring to Janet Kramke, who we had on the podcast a couple weeks ago from Backyard Blooms.
Yeah, right.
That's fun. Yeah, this is the Connecticut month, I guess. So I want to kind of back to the narrative. I take credit for getting you off topic, but this Kate coming to help Becky at the farm during COVID kind of thing. Somehow, when did it formalize to be a partnership and the two of you going all in? Because now it seems like it's controlling your lives in a good way.
Yeah.
Like this is definitely your energy is focused on the farm, right?
Yes, all of it. So what happened was Becky had been making arrangements for friends of hers and sort of, you know, either making arrangements and leaving them at a table at the end of the driveway at the farm, or, you know, friends would ask for arrangements and she'd just make an arrangement and give it away. I'm like, you're spending money and time to grow these. You can sell this, right? And she's like, well, yeah, maybe I can, but it's so hard to start up an LLC and do it the right way. And so we started an LLC and we started trying to do it the right way. That's where I come in.
Yes.
When was that, Kate?
So that was in, I think in 2020,
Okay.
in the summer of 2020, we started for real.
You had time on your hands.
Yeah,
Exactly
exactly.
right. Exactly right. So we started for real in 2020 and we had a, you know, okay half year. I mean, granted it was the pandemic and everything, but we had a good time. And then last year we really dove in head first and
did the thing.
Right. And
Right.
we're trying to make smart business decisions, and we made tons of mistakes along the way, but we also did lots of really good things. So now this year we're building on what we did last year and what we were able to do last year. Our high tunnel wasn't done until May of 2021. So we weren't able to use it pretty much at all last year. So this was our first year growing in our high tunnel, which has been so cool.
So like your early crops really were 2022. That was when you were able to develop that program.
Exactly. Before that, we were waiting for pretty much, you know, Mother's Day to play. And that's, you know, it's a really truncated
Between Mother's Day and Memorial Day, we're planting everything. And it was just, you know, it was,
right. And we weren't able to offer any of our own flowers before that, which was kind of a bummer. So now we have our ranunculus and our anemones that were gangbusters last year that were our early crops. So that was super fun. And we're sort of trying to figure out what we're going to do for next year. But
well, it sounds like there's no going back. Like Becky, this is your profession now. You're not teaching is not really feeling, you don't feel sentimental about leaving that, right?
Well, so I still coach.
Okay.
I coach girls swimming and boys indoor and outdoor track and field at Newtown High School. Because farming doesn't pay all the bills yet.
Right.
We're getting there.
We're
getting there. And I have been, this is my 20th year. I hate to say it, coaching. And so I have a little bit of a hard time giving it up because I do still like, you know, having that aspect of my life, but you know, it's becoming harder and harder to schedule around things. And, you know, I'm trying to push a swim meet back a couple hours because I have to drop off a wedding, and you know, it's like it's become a lot. But you know, I haven't cut the cord yet. But hopefully, if things keep going well, you know, it's coming. So,
or they could just give you the winter sports, like when you. You know,
I can do indoor track and indoor track alone. Yeah.
Right. And it sounds like the transition also kind of coincided with you becoming an empty nester, Kate, like your time freed up as well. Is that true?
Yes. So I have one child in high school right now and another that just started college. So they're more self-sufficient than they were. So it's easier for me to be able to just come up here for the day and do my thing and then come home. And it's great. It really allows me to have the time.
The farm has always been called Appleberry Farm as long as our family has owned it. And, you know, when I first started, you know, selling things and stuff like that, you know, I was hoping to use the flag of Appleberry Farm. And, you know, we had some family members, because this was back when the farm was owned by everybody. We had some family members who weren't comfortable with me using the farm name because we weren't sure what was going to happen with the farm. And so it was actually my dad who was like, well, just call it Becky at Appleberry, because it's you and you're at Appleberry Farm. So there you go. So it kind of turned into that. And I was like, oh, we'll just call it that for now, you know, and then when I think of a real name, I can transfer it over. And so now that, you know, Kate and Dave have bought the farm and we're all doing this together, and Appleberry Farm is now free, you know, it's kind of Appleberry Farm as its own thing, you know, we're growing the flowers through Appleberry Farm, we're doing all that through Appleberry Farm, but then to get the floral design side of it, you're basically getting it from Becky at Appleberry. And so it kind of stuck. And, you know,
yeah, it's interesting too, because it's probably even what people said before you were an LLC, like I'm getting flowers from Becky at Appleberry. So
exactly. You know, so it stuck, it was catchy, you know, we kept it. So
yeah. Are you planning on having on-farm events ever, Kate? Like now that you have, you know, all this acreage, like would you rent it out for weddings, or is it just like, no, we'll do the flowers and that's enough?
So this is originally, we entertained the idea of maybe being able to rent it out for weddings, but then we kind of decided it was just a ton of work that took away from what we really enjoyed doing, which was the growing and designing flowers. And during COVID, we hosted a couple micro weddings where it was like 8 people and the bride and groom, or people would come here and take pictures. We love it when photographers want to come with a family and take pictures on the farm during the day. That's fabulous. But the whole having 100+ people here on the property, having a huge event it's way too much.
It's a whole different business model, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It really,
it's a private residence. And so, you know, I'm fine. Like we've had a couple family weddings here. Like I have a friend who's a choreographer in New York City who has come out to the farm and done a couple amazing performances. Like, and we've hosted them, and we've had like, you know, cocktails in the barn before. And then we set up a stage and they do their performance and stuff like that.
How fun.
But that's our stuff, you know,
it's our friends.
Yeah. Right. I don't need 200 strangers in our backyard, you know, at midnight, me coming out being like, okay, guys, it's time to go, you know, like kind of thing.
Yeah. There's nothing that would make you hate flower farming faster than that, probably.
I think so. And there are other facilities in the area that do that. And that's great.
Yeah.
It's good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you tell people, look, we'll do your flowers, but go find another facility.
Exactly.
Wow. So what I think I really appreciate about just following you on Instagram and seeing how creative and clever you are is that you do not deviate from your core message, which is that local flowers are superior and you should be buying them. And do you put much, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but do you put much time into scripting these little vignettes that you're filming every day? Because you're so consistent. It's like your customers better know now that if they're in the grocery store and they have and you see them with cellophane wrapped, you know, imported roses, that they better go hide, because
that's right.
They've been trained.
I actually have a friend who sent me a picture of what her husband had gotten her for her birthday. And it was this bouquet wrapped in cellophane. And she went, "Don't worry, I shamed him. He'll call you next time."
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's the trick of reels, is like you have to have a simple message, right? So you just pick one concept and just do it really well.
Yeah. And so, you know, we, as not only floral farmers, but also flower farmer florists, you know, it's having that, you know, I guess touchstone of local. You know, I've had so many brides who are like, "Can you wrap the tent in Smilax?" And I'm like, "No, we don't grow that. But I'm gonna kind of use my brain and figure out how I can maybe do it with silver dollar eucalyptus, or you know, something that will give a similar feel, but that I can buy from local farmers or grow myself."
Right.
You know,
but as far as staying on message for the reels, the scripting is kind of hilarious. We usually we either have a really, really great idea and it takes us way too long to film it. And we get so excited about it, and then the reel does not do well. And then it's usually the stuff when I'm getting in my car, we're both yelling at each other. At the end of the day, we're exhausted, we're tired, we're hot, we're sweaty, everybody's done. Somebody will go, "Oh, we didn't do a reel." And then we flip through our phones really quickly, find some audio that we like. We're like, all right, we'll just do it. And those are usually the ones that
Take off. Yeah.
So is that the audio of some like little clip of someone else's voice that has gone viral and then you guys just lip sync it? Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about?
Yes. Or we find music that's trending or some sort of audio noise that we just sort of latch on to.
Yeah.
But we always try and make it about flowers and flower farming.
Yeah.
That's sort of our
Our
catch.
And a lot of it does come back to foam-free florals, local flowers. It's what is so important to us because what keeps us going.
Right.
And I know a lot of florists in the area who, especially during the growing season, will still, source some stuff from local farmers, but still some stuff. And that's fine. Like it's not for everyone, but I feel like, when you come to a designer like us, where this is one of our core values, is we put very heavily out that it is our core values, almost too much sometimes, but this is what you're getting, and this is what, going in that, if it's not in June, you're probably not getting roses.
Yeah.
If it's
September, you're not having peonies.
Yeah.
Right. But you have so much fun with it that even though I can't imagine like after that long day of, grueling, digging, weeding, harvesting, you just still, I think it's just the dynamic between the two of you. You still laugh.
You have to, Deborah, you're going to cry.
And you also poke fun at each other and spoof each other.
Yeah.
It's sort of part of the brand, I guess. I was going to say shtick, but I mean brand.
It is, if you had talked to the two of us in the late 90s and like gone back and been like, you guys are going to own a business together. Now I would have 100% told you were absolutely crazy. Because we couldn't even be in the room with each other without somebody starting a fight with something. And the beautiful thing about our company is that we, as we've gotten older, have really learned to appreciate each other's strengths and differences and not used it so much as a competition anymore. It's that, okay, I know Kate's way much better with numbers and paperwork, and
not that I want to be,
but the minutia of things, like I'm more a big picture, like I make the mass, like I'm the way more.
And I'm the one that's snipping the itty bitty little stems and right before the bouquet goes out the door.
It's very complimentary. I love that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And
that's that division of labor. It sounds like you've learned to just accept and play to your strengths.
Yeah.
We try to. There are times where we still scream at each other,
but that's healthy. That's healthy.
Yeah. So were you forced to share a bedroom as kids? And did you hate each other?
No, but we played all the same sports and it was a small town. So we played all the same sports. We did all the same stuff. And it was just.
Yeah. And she was the amazing big sister that I desperately wanted to be. And she wanted nothing to do with me. And, so it had always been, this like, just me trying to prove how good I am to her and her being like, whatever, as sisters do sometimes, you know.
Oh my gosh.
But she was also the amazing athlete that I aspired to be. So there was always some sort of like, well, she could do this and she's getting all this attention doing this. And like,
but then she was getting, straight A's and going, so it was all this very different, it was always, it's like, growing up high school stuff. And once we become adults and realize that, like, it's okay that we're different and good at different things and can appreciate each other's good things and know that that doesn't take away from us as humans, it's kind of turned into a really good business partnership. So
I love it. That's beautiful. How far apart in age are you?
2 real years, 3 school years.
Wow. Yeah. Like it's nothing now, but it's a major when you're in, one of you is in junior high and the other is in high school. And
when she was a senior and I was a freshman in high school, Oh yeah. And I was the only freshman that made the varsity soccer team that she was a captain of. You
Oh,
better
no.
believe I carried
Oh, yeah.
every single water bottle and every single soccer ball, and nobody helped me.
Oh, I love that there's a happy ending to this story. Childhood trauma.
It makes us
Forget it.
stronger.
Oh my goodness. That it makes me so happy. I love it. Well, what do you have now that we're kind of coming to the end of the season? When is your frost, do you think, within the next couple weeks or?
Last year, we didn't get frost until almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So the year before that, we already had a frost at this point. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a wild
You don't
card.
know. Yeah.
We have no clue.
We normally plan for like end of October. You know, sometimes we'll get a rogue snowstorm at the end of October, you know, up
Yeah.
here, but with global warming and everything and the weather getting crazy, you know, it's a crapshoot at this point.
If you sense that something like that is happening, would you harvest everything and you have a cooler that you can kind of hold some things and maybe not get to Thanksgiving, but maybe still have product to sell the week after a frost?
Yeah. So what we'll do is we also dry flowers, some of the stuff that we grow. So straw flower, gomphrena, status, eucalyptus, you know, that kind of stuff. So we will dry some of that stuff. We also buy dried stuff from the collective.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of Thanksgiving centerpieces out of dried florals for people.
neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we do wreaths with dried flowers in
Right.
them, and, you know,
So that's your season extension.
yep. And then we do Christmas wreaths,
Which we need to get on.
which we need to get on ordering that stuff.
Back to
And
full
then-
circle from when you started the reels, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And then we take the second half of December and January off, and then we start seedlings. And yeah.
That's great. I'm glad you're taking some time off. It's been a push, hasn't it?
Well, I'm still coaching, but
Yeah.
you know, take time off.
Yeah. Yeah. It means you get
But-
to maybe sleep a little bit later every now and then.
Every now and then, you
Unless
know,
there's
the
an
dogs
early
still
morning.
the dogs still like to get me up at 6 because that's when they're used to having their breakfast. So.
Mm. Wow. Well, you talked about having experimental trial planting areas. So do you think that you'll add some other, I mean, obviously you're going to mix it up with your pallets on the Lysianthus, but do you have other crops that you want to add, or is that reference to adding perennials kind of the game plan for future?
So I think it's kind of twofold. You know,
Okay.
we are looking to add more perennials. Like we're going to start investing in things like peonies. You know, they take a couple years to mature so we can harvest from them. You know, we're going to keep our dahlias. We love our dahlias. You know, we have a couple David Austin rose bushes that we've kind of expanded over the years. We had a couple every year. So they're starting to kind of really hit their stride, which is amazing.
Yeah.
The deer don't eat them.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, we're looking towards more perennials, but we love our tried and true zinnias. We love the celosia. We love the eucalyptus. You know, we tried stock this year for the first time. We got them in way too late. They looked awful. But now some of the plants that were left over are, now that it's getting cooler, are starting to do their thing again.
Yeah.
And so now we're getting a little late season stock.
That's
know,
awesome. And now you
yeah.
know what you'll do differently next year.
Oh yeah. You know, we tried sunflowers this year. It was a huge failure.
Massive failure.
Huge
Massive.
failure. They all fell over. We didn't harvest them at the right time. They all started to branch. It was just a mess. The birds love them, so that was great.
Yeah.
And the bees love them and all that. So anytime we can promote pollinators, you know, we're there to help. But it was not good for flower sales.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of, we look at things, some things will reseed themselves. So whether we want them to come back or not, ta-da.
Yeah.
You know, our jewels of Opar are everywhere now.
It's kind of fun.
And our feverfew is everywhere, but that's
Right.
cool. It's good.
But then
Yeah.
we have the failures like the Monarda.
Monarda this year where we planted, I love the Lambada Monarda. Like that's just, it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
I think it looks beautiful in a bouquet. Like it's just fun. It reminds me of like umbrellas on the beach, you know, kind of thing. and we planted this whole chunk of it.
We had it last year. It grew beautifully last year. So fantastic.
And this year we did not get a single bloom. And it all just got powdery mildew and just died. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't like us this year. And so we bought some from the collective every time we needed it. But it was, you know, I was like planting this giant half row of Lombada Monarda to also dry and to use in other things. And it was just a complete failure. So,
well, whatever it is, we're going to see it on Becky at Appleberry on Instagram, because you really peel back the curtain and show, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, you show and it's all good. You're educating people, and that's probably the scientist meets the coach. You know, you got something to teach.
yeah.
I really adore you guys, and I really loved getting to know you at the summit. I know it was kind of like a whirlwind and we didn't get to talk as much as we wanted, but this is my excuse to circle back and have a whole conversation. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure we share before we wrap up?
You know, kind of how we, you know, how at least I became a designer, you know, a floral designer. You know, my mom, our mother has been the flower goddess in our family, our whole growing up. She would get bored or angry and go dig a new garden in the yard and, you know, start planting things. And, you know, she made beautiful perennial gardens in our house growing up, and always was cutting things and having these beautiful arrangements on our kitchen table. And we just thought everyone's mom did that. We didn't know that it was just our really cool mom. And she's been in the Garden Club of Newtown for years, and then competes at the Connecticut Flower Show every year. And she won they're basically their equivalent of Best in Show, you know, for design a couple years ago. She's won big horticulture awards for you know, different plants, that house plants that she's grown and stuff like that. So, you know, we kind of like to say that we, you know, learned at the feet of the master. You know, she would be creating something and, you know, walking us through it and being like, you know, oh, you know, odd numbers are more visually appealing, you know, talk to us about the color wheel, talk to us about different heights, and, you know, like kind of teaching us whether we knew it or not, you know, and we were just like, this bucket's getting heavy, mom, shut up and just put the flowers in the thing, you know, like, but, you know, it all internalized. And then, you know, when I started designing, you know, it was really neat because, you know, I would send her pictures and she'd be like, you're doing good, kid. Or maybe you should move that yellow one over a little bit, you know, or do this, you know? And so, you know, now they're living up in Maine. And one of our favorite things every year is when we go up to visit, we always bring her a big bucket of flowers, you know, that we've grown. And then she, you know, does her magic. And it's so fun to see what she does with our flowers too. So, you know.
That is a great story. I didn't ask you about like your designing, and I just made this assumption that you taught yourselves, but you really learned, you know, for years from your mom, and now you're kind of putting your own little Becky at Appleberry twist on things. But she's in your head as you're designing.
Oh yeah. And it's neat because now, you know, she'll ask me, like if she's doing something for the flower show that's big, you know, she'll ask me about what mechanics I'm using and, you know, trying to incorporate some of her stuff. So it's now kind of become a reciprocal relationship, which is really, really fun. And, you know, a little gratifying, I do have to say, but you know, it's, that's
a great story.
It's a great, yeah.
Do you have that same experience, Kate, when you're designing, you hear your mother's voice and advising you?
I'm still the novice designer.
She's coming along.
I'm not really allowed to do a lot.
That's a lie. That's a lie. You're allowed. You just don't have the confidence yet in your design skills.
In myself, but no, but I'm getting better.
I believe it. I want to see you branch out. And you know, some people sort of relegate like, oh, she can just do the boutonnieres kind of thing. But what's your favorite thing to design?
For you?
Oh,
yeah, for Kate. Yeah.
Oh dear. I'm terrified. I don't know. That's a really good question.
If you jumped in and said, I'll help.
Tiny things.
Okay.
Kate loves, like sometimes we'll do for our farm sales, we'll do like the big mason jar, the medium mason jar, the little mason jar. And then she collects these little tiny jars wherever she goes. And she'll curate these amazing little arrangements of all basically the stuff that drops off the ground while I'm designing all the other things. She'll pick them up and she'll put them all in these little tiny jars. And we call them our little puts because they're our minis.
Yes.
And they'll like sit on the counter, like on the table right where you check out. And, it's always the little kid who's sitting there, mom's buying the big bouquet, and the little kid's like, I want one of those, or during the pandemic, people were buying them and putting them next to their computer. So they'd have like, a little bit of the outside when they were all stuck inside. And so, I think her big strength is the tiny little details. I'm way more macro. She's micro.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But Becky's big thing is huge installations. Give this girl a wall or a doorway or an enormous urn and she is in there.
Oh yeah.
And the bigger the better.
Yeah. And you're just facilitating that by egging her on.
Right. Right. I'm engineering too.
Yes.
I love it. I hope I get to visit you someday and see what you're doing. Now that my boys live in Brooklyn, I know you're just a train ride away and there's no excuse. So next summer for sure.
Come on up.
All right. Well, thank you both so much. This has been such a delight. We're so happy you're part of the Slow Flower Society. You just make me smile every time I see you. And I know that you're just talking the talk and walking the walk. And that really helps. I mean, you have to kind of message people one conversation at a time. And that's what you're doing.
Oh yeah. And it's the day-to-day conversations with people in the community that really are going to help support the local farmers and the local flowers. And, I have friends who are out in, different parts of the world and they're like, oh, I wish that you could send me your flowers. And I'm like, well, look online and find a local flower farm. Support someone in your area. Like, I know you'd love to support me because we're friends, but support me by supporting someone who's near you. So if I have friends who are having birthdays, I'll, find a flower farm near them who also does design, and I'll order something from them to deliver to my friends, instead of sending something FTD or through the mail or something like that. You gotta start small and hope it catches on. And because that's how, $100 in a local farmer's pocket is way different than, $150 spent online, so.
That's a really good point.
That's
and
kind
I
of.
think there's been a reel on that same message, hasn't there?
There probably
maybe a few.
maybe a few.
Okay. Well, thank you both so much. And we'll get this out into the world and add some reels, and it'll be a beautiful episode. So. Hey, thank you so much for joining me. That was such a great conversation with Becky and Kate. And we went so long that I'm going to save our sponsor thank yous for the podcast version of this conversation. So you can listen for that when we post episode 579. You can find it at slowflowerspodcast.com. And I was just having too much fun today. And you can tell, right? So I will see you soon. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers Podcast. And I want to especially thank my podcast editor, Andrew Brenlin, who jumped in to help me at the last minute to edit this video. I kept having technical difficulties, so I'm very grateful for his talent. And I look forward to seeing you